Okay, we've learned about string formatting for one and multiple items. And along the way, we learned about tuples, which is a new data structure. Let's get a little fancy with the string formatting now. So one thing we can do, a little bit fancier, is do different alignment options. So we can align to the left, we can align to the right, or we can center align with formatting. And it's very simple. We use three symbols. If you want to align to the left, then you use the left angle bracket. And if you want to align to the right, you use the right angle bracket. And if you want to align center, then you use the caret. And as we've seen in Python 3, which is the Python version that we're using, left alignment is default for strings and right alignment is default for numbers. So if you want to change the default, these are the symbols you would use. For example, here we've got a string both. The default is going to print out both aligned to the left. And since both only has 4 characters, it's going to pad those extra 6 characters with white space to the right. We can change that by putting our right alignment in front of the 6. And in this case, both is going to be aligned to the right, and those extra white spaces are now to the left. With center alignment, we use the caret. And in this case, Python's going to take the extra white space that's generated. In this case, there are 2 extra white spaces, and it's going to put both in between them. It's going to put the white spaces as evenly as possible on both sides of both. Another option we have is to pad characters with really any character that we want. So we've seen white spaces and we've seen zeros for numbers. And the default for strings is spaces, and the default for numbers is 0, as we've seen. Or we can use spaces for numbers as well. But you can actually place that padding with any single character that you want. And here, in order to prevent errors, it's good to also specify the alignment so that it works out correctly, even if you want the default alignment to be used. So here we have formatting the word both into our string. And we have here our string specifier. We have the 6 characters that we want minimum to be printed out. We have the alignment to the to the left, which is our default. And before that, we have the character that we want the extra spaces, if there are any, to be padded with. And it's going to print out this. So it's left alignment, and instead of white spaces to the right, we now have the plus character. So we can specify that by just putting that before the alignment. So here we are going to use the tilde, that's what it's called. That's a tilde, in case you didn't know. And that, because it's center alignment and the current year has 4 digits in it, the extra 4 digits out of the 8 minimum are going to be centered around or put evenly on both sides of the year digit. You can also use variables for your padding character or for any of the values in formatting, the size, the padding character, etc. And in this case, because our formatting, our curly bracket thing is inside of string, if you want to use a variable, you have to use concatenation to put them together. So for example, if we have a variable C, which holds our padding character, the tilde, it's a string, notice, so it's a string variable, then we have to use concatenation. You can't just put the variable inside of a string, right? So we've split up our string that we want formatted. The why not, the open curly brace and the colon is in this string right here, which we can see by the quotation marks. And we're concatenating that with our string variable. And the rest of the string, so the rest of what's in the curly brackets as well as the rest of our string, is in another string here. And with the concatenation, of course, that's going to become one string, and then it's going to put in the tilde in there and format it as it should. So you can put all of your values that you want to use in a variable, but just like any other time you want to put a string variable and a string literal together, you have to concatenate to make it work. So that's going to print out as it should, 2 with the extra 6 characters padded with the tilde around it because it's center aligned. Actually, a better way of doing this, it's less confusing and easier to read, is to make it a string first. So to make your whole formatting string with that variable concatenated in there as a separate variable itself, which then you can put into your print or file output file write function. And it's just, as you can see, I think it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to read. You can go straight to your string, your sentence, and edit that as you will, and still have the print statement work correctly. So here's your rules for fancy formatting. Here's your template. And again, as before, you don't want to put those spaces in your actual code. First of all, after the open brace and the colon, you're going to put your padding character. So the padding character comes right after the colon, whatever character you want to use. Then you must have an alignment if you have a padding character, a special padding character. And then everything else that you know about already is going to come after these two things. All right, let's walk through an example of some of this fancy formatting that we've learned. So here we have code, and the first line is a list of dog breeds, which is in the kennel variable name. And then we're going to loop through for I in range length of kennel, which is going, of course, to generate index numbers for the number of items that we have in the list. And then we're going to print out a formatted string. And our formatting is right here. We've got colon, we've got an alignment character, we have our minimum number, and then a string, which is what we're dealing with. We have our formatted func method here. And in there, we're going to take our variable, which is, of course, is going to grab the string from the list. And then comma, I. So this print function is going to print out the formatted string, and then it's going to print out the index that we're working with, which is going to be the number of our pin. So think for a second, maybe jot down on a piece of paper what the output is going to be here. Or at least the first line. So let's look at the first line. The first time it's going to go through the loop, it's going to print out the first dog breed in the list. And it's going to look like this. And since Akita only has 5 characters, it's going to pad the rest of those 10 characters with white spaces because we didn't specify any special character. We did specify that it should be aligned to the right, which is not the default for strings. So the extra spaces are to the left of the dog breed name. And then, of course, for the I, we have 0 in our pin. So that's the first line, and the rest of the lines are like that. So when we finish the loop, this is what our printout will be. And you'll notice that all of the dog breeds are aligned here to the right in front of that space, which is in our string here. And the A is also aligned over here. And we have the extra spaces, however many there are, based on the length of the dog breed name in front of those names. So all of our dog breed names are very nicely aligned in the middle of our string. And it doesn't matter how long they are, they all fit, which is very nice. All right, here's another exercise. We have some code which includes the pi digit with not all, but many of its decimal points, and then a print statement with empty brackets right here. And it's going to format that number. So I want you to pause and write out what formatting is needed for each outcome. And just all you need to do is give the curly braces and what would be inside of them to get the outcome for these 3 strings. And I'll point out here that you have 2 spaces right here, 2 additional spaces after this space right here. So take a moment and write down what the formatting should look like. All right, so for the first one, we want, of course, the digit before the decimal and then 6 digits after. So we could write it like this: curly braces :6f, F for float. Actually, I haven't told you this before, but the default for number of decimal points in the formatting method here is 6. So we could have actually gotten the same result by just doing :f. For the second one, we again have 6 digits after the decimal. We have the decimal point, the digit before the decimal point, and 2 spaces. So this is what we would have. that would be the correct one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the 2 extra spaces to reach 10 are right here in front. For the last one, we only have 2 digits after the decimal. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. This is actually the total, remember, total digits. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To reach 6, we need to have extra padding, and this is indicated that we want that padding to be 0. And to note here, when you're padding numbers with 0, you don't need an alignment symbol. Only when you're using a special character. So zeros for numbers is not a special character. And of course, spaces for both numbers and strings are not special characters. So you don't need to have an alignment character in those cases. But in other cases with special padding characters, you do. Here's another exercise. So I've put the pie up there to remind you for that first one. Take a moment, pause here, and write what the formatting would be generated here. So for the first one, we want the pi digit with a minimum of 1 character and no more than 3 digits after the decimal point. For the second one, we want to print out that string with at least 10 characters. The buffs string is going to be center aligned, and if any extra spaces will be padded with the asterisks. So buffs has 5 characters, so the extra 5 spaces are padded with the asterisks. And note here that when we have an uneven number of padding, it's going to revert to the alignment, and the extra one is going to go to the right of the string. For the last one, we have that string, it's over, and then we wanted to format the number 9. But here we're doing left alignment, and the extra spaces are going to be filled with zeros. So we actually have turned that 9 into 9,000, which is a little scary when you're working with digits and zeros. You need to be careful there. And the last one, we have 2 items and 2 strings. The first one is right aligned, so it's kind of hard to see, but there's 2 extra spaces in the front of that string because hello only takes up 5 spaces. The second one is center aligned, so we're doing double duty here with the caret. The first caret says that we want to pad extra spaces with the caret, and the second caret here says that we want to center align.